I think we'll stand.
So the two ladies need high chairs. I think So let's all do one more thing. Let's welcome Valerie home. This is
just looking around the room, it's like a trip down memory lane. I know almost every single person in this room. And let me tell you, there's no place like home. So thank you all very much.
So my task today is actually to get the conversation started. I'll be asking a few questions. I hope Valerie won't just go, yes, no. So I'm hopeful that she actually begins to expand on some of the things that sparked our interest from the State of the Union address recently, some of the things that are clearly aligned between the city of Chicago and our nation. And then, are there cards at each of your? So why don't you also, during the time when we have some questions up here, begin to write your own questions, and then we will, at about 10 o'clock, we'll turn the conversation over to you and Valerie. So I want to say that actually I heard the State of the Union address, and I did not hear what some of the critics actually said they heard. I heard a bold plan for action. I heard some very important challenges to Congress. And so I actually know, though, that there's a high degree of skepticism because of the gridlock in Congress about the ability to actually get things done. So talk a little bit about what you think you can get done, but also, most importantly for us, tell us where cities and states can take the lead and actually be in support of an agenda.
Well, thank you, Julia. And I should say thank you to Michael. Michael and I talked about this a couple of months ago, and we thought the timing was perfect right after the State of the Union, because as I described to Michael, the president really wanted to emphasize how around the country there are amazing things happening, and our cities are the economic engine. And so where better to come after the State of the Union that focuses on what we can do working with cities and counties and states around the country to help grow our economy, provide a strong and stable middle class and ladders of opportunity to people who want to move into the middle class. And then to have this event here at the University of Chicago, and as President Zimmer said, my whole life I had an affiliation with the University of Chicago, feels like coming full circle. But the real reason why, I knew they could do it, the real, thank you so much. Now we can sit and talk to you. But the real reason why I wanted to begin this conversation in Chicago is because the president is from Chicago. Obviously, we both know that this is a city that I think, and now I've worked with cities all across the country, and we have some amazing cities, but Chicago is unique in terms of its ability to actually implement a plan similar to the one that World Business Chicago has produced. And the plan, I was just briefed in great detail on the plan, and it really reflects, I think, the strength of the city, which is you have strong mayor, you have an amazing city council, and I see several of you here. You have a county board president who used to be an alderman and understands where the rubber meets the road. You have a business community, whether it's the major employers or small entrepreneurs in our neighborhoods, who are committed not just to growing their own businesses, but to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And Chicago has a civic community that is second to none. And then you have incredible institutions, and whether it's the Community Trust, and Terry was just telling me about the $2 billion they now have, which is amazing, that will be leveraged through working with all of you. And you have these incredible institutions, from the universities to the museums to the Art Institute, all of the cultural amenities that Rahm mentioned when he was here, coming together to make the city stronger. And so the president is committed to working with Congress, and we have a robust agenda that will require them, and whether it's immigration reform or getting trade deals done or what patent reform, whole legislative agenda. But if we are unable to get Congress to act, that doesn't mean it can't be a year of action. And that's where all of you come in. And I'm just so excited about exploring with you the possibilities of lifting up the best practices that we see around the country, many of which began right here in Chicago. So I'm not going to dive right into the conversation about immigration, but I do want to say that historically, cities across this country, with just a few in the lead, have always been sort of gateways to opportunity. But across the country now, some cities are losing residents, they're losing wealth and jobs, but are there things that cities can do on their own
within the context of their states, to once again turn cities like Chicago into gateways for opportunity.
Well, absolutely. And just Friday, President Obama and I were in Detroit. We were meeting with the mayor. We were outside of Detroit, but meeting with the mayor of Detroit. And he's very excited about trying to rebuild the population in Detroit and get immigrants to come to the city. And let's face it, our country has always been a nation of immigrants. Everybody came from somewhere. And so figuring out ways of drawing businesses back to the United States, having immigrants feel as though they have a stake in our economy and are invested in their future, is why we're supporting comprehensive immigration reform. And the vast majority of the American people support it as well. And I actually think if you were to take a vote in the House, you'd find the majority of the folks in the House of Representatives support it. But sometimes that's not enough to get action. But what we can do is to work with cities all across the country and try to showcase why immigration reform is in the best interest of our country. And we're going to continue to do that and highlight what is working. There's lots that cities can do on their own. And looking again around this room, figuring out ways of taking a plan such as the one that you've developed here and figuring out how to implement it and leverage what's working. And so from the president's vision, he's focusing on what does it really take to build that strong, sustainable economy. And government can't do it alone. We have to have the private sector. That's where the job creation happens. That's where the long-term sustainable health of our country comes from. And so if you put yourself in the position of a business, what do you need in order to thrive? You need a workforce that's skilled. And so we need to have programs beginning with early childhood education, improving our school system, working with our colleges to make sure that they are affordable and that they're training people for the jobs of the future. That includes our community colleges, and I know Mayor Emanuel has made working with the community colleges a top priority here in Chicago. We need to bring down the costs of tuition as the federal government continues to provide financial aid. We need to make sure that we're working with universities to bring down the costs. One good example of doing it, taking action on our own is a couple weeks ago, we convened in the White House 80 university and college presidents. President Zimmer was there, focusing on what can we do to help disadvantaged young people aspire, apply, get accepted, and then succeed in college. And to have 80 university presidents sign on to improve their strategies, and then 150 in total so far have said, yes, we can do more. It's a good example of where you don't need a big federal program, you just need some cooperation and some prioritization. Mayor Emanuel mentioned our effort we had when we gathered a group of business leaders at the White House just last week, and we said to them, look, there are people in our country who've been unemployed for a long time. That does not mean that they can't make a meaningful contribution to the workforce. What can large employers do to try to develop programs to get those folks back on the job and working again and give them a fair shot? That's another good example. So there are many, many examples of where we're working with leaders around the country, beginning in our cities, to try to create that economic momentum that will give everybody that fair shot. If you work hard and you roll up your sleeves and you play by the rules in this country, you should be able to raise your children and send them to school, hope that they do better than you've done, have a home, not worry about going broke if you get sick or you're in an accident, and then retire with dignity and a little money in your pocket. That's the American dream that everyone wants, and it is happening around our country. And we have to look at the optimistic stories and not always just focus on what isn't working. Let's showcase what is working. Don't you all agree with that?